enough for two.
Welcome back, everybody. Time for us to go behind the headlines. It's 14 after, and today I saw an interesting headline coming out of the UK media regarding cannabis psychosis. This is something they talk about a lot in the UK. In Britain, their tabloid papers go all off the deep end about cannabis psychosis and the deadly skunk. The marijuana that's so, 50 times more potent, I guess. That's so potent it causes people to go psychotic and kill their mom and do terrible, terrible things, right? So this is something they talk about a lot in Britain, this cannabis psychosis, this idea that super potent marijuana makes you crazy, makes you violent, makes you lose your mind. All right, so the story coming out of Britain today, and this comes from The Guardian in the UK, that says, cannabis psychosis admissions rose in England after drug reclassified to Class B. Now, this requires us to understand a little bit about how the British drug classification system works. Cannabis was first controlled in Britain. It became a controlled drug in 1925. Yeah, a full 12 years before the federal government in the United States banned cannabis with the with Marijuana Tax Act. Britain had already made it a controlled substance in 1925. The legislation was rationalized in 1971 when the Misuse of Drugs Act was passed. And you can analogize this to about in America when we passed the Controlled Substances Act, which is roughly the same time, 1970, 1971. It's kind of just following a international pattern at that time to come up with these strict regulations for drugs. So Britain passed the Misuse of Drugs Act and put cannabis initially in Class B. Now, in the United States, we have 5 schedules, Schedule 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And Schedule 1 drugs are the ones that are completely dangerous, there's no safe use, and there's no medical use whatsoever. Like LSD and heroin and mushrooms and marijuana. Right? They're all no medical use whatsoever, extremely dangerous drugs. Right. Well, in Britain, they don't have 5, they got 3. They got Class A, Class B, Class C. Their Class A drugs are the real strong ones, heroin and such. Class C drugs are the ones that are less likely to be abused, right? So in this tiered system, A, B, and C, cannabis in 1971 was originally put in Class B, fairly dangerous drug that would have, would have severe penalties if you're caught with it, right? But in January of 2004, Britain reclassified cannabis to the lowest category, put it down in Class C. David Blunkett was in charge, or Blunkett, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but he was in charge at that time, and stated that the change would protect the credibility of drug education as the classes would more adequately reflect actual harms. Scientists looked at the actual harms of cannabis and decided it should be classified lower because it wasn't that bad. And the government actually did it. It was amazing. And remember, this is 2004, where we're one term into George W. Bush. Reefer madness is at an all-time high. They're busting dispensaries in America. Meanwhile, Britain is dropping it from Class B to Class C in 2004. Well, when that happened, the British media went nuts. This is when the whole skunk psychosis thing started really getting legs in the UK. And by 2009, there was a new Home Secretary. Her name was Jackie Smith. And she was getting all these reports about the stronger strains of cannabis causing psychosis. And the government twice asked the Advisory Council on the Misuse of Drugs. They've actually got a scientific panel to advise this. And despite the board saying, well, no, it should stay Class C. Really, this kind of cannabis psychosis thing is a bunch of bullocks, let's say. Still, Jackie Smith raised it from Class C to Class B back in 2009. Well, here is what we found as the result of that. And one of her main justifications for raising it to Class B was, the psychosis, the skunk. Oh my God, we lowered it to Class C, and all these people are doing the skunk now, and oh my God, now their psychosis is rampant. Well, here's the actual results. Research has suggested that the number of hospital admissions for psychosis caused by cannabis use started to decline after its classification was lowered to Class C, but started to increase again after it went back up to a Class B drug. It's like Lively Libra said in the chat room. Part of what leads to cannabis psychosis is the threat of doing serious prison time for having cannabis. So they lowered it to Class C. They had less cannabis psychosis. They raised it to Class B. It went back up again. But overall, during the entire period investigated, 2001 to 2010, cannabis use declined in the country, and general diagnoses for psychosis decreased. And the important thing to note also is that we're talking about decreases here. We're talking about people being admitted to the hospital on the range of 40 to 100 per month in the entirety of England. So this just gives lie to this idea that cannabis is causing psychosis. It is prohibition that is causing paranoia. Lower it back to Class C, just like your ministers said that you should, and get the results that you got, a lowering in these problems. It seems rather simple
to us enlightened folk.
Yeah. Hey, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll have Herb Thrasher on the line for a daily toke of tunes.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer?